The laughter started softly, like the clinking of glasses, easy to ignore if you pretended it wasn't meant for you. But Emma knew better. She felt it the moment she stepped into the wedding hall. Her borrowed blue dress clinging where it shouldn't, the fabric stretching across years of silent battles with her body and her self-worth. Conversations paused, eyes flickered, smiles curled into something sharp. This was her cousin's wedding, a place meant for joy, yet Emma stood near the entrance wishing she could disappear into the white lights hanging from the ceiling. Emma had almost not come. She'd rehearsed excuses all morning, staring at herself in the mirror, hearing echoes of old voices, school bullies, strangers online, even relatives who thought honesty meant cruelty. You don't belong in places like this, but her aunt had insisted. Family is family, she'd said, and so Emma came, holding her purse like a shield, walking carefully as if the floor itself might betray her. At the corner table, a group of bridesmaids whispered behind their hands. One of them glanced at Emma's plate when she finally sat down, then smirked. Another leaned closer and murmured something that made the others laugh. Emma's face burned. She focused on her napkin, folding and unfolding it, telling herself to get through dinner and leave early. She had learned long ago that endurance was a kind of survival. What Emma didn't notice at first was the man 2 tables away, the single dad who had arrived late carrying a small girl on his hip. His name was Daniel. His daughter Lily had fallen asleep in the car after a long day of flower petal duties, and he hadn't had the heart to wake her. Daniel looked tired in the quiet way only single parents understand. Life had stripped him down to essentials since his wife passed away 3 years earlier. Love, responsibility, and the promise he'd made to raise Lily in a world kinder than the one he'd known. As Daniel settled Lily into her chair, he noticed the shift in the room, the glances, the suppressed laughter. He followed her gaze and saw Emma. He didn't see her size first, he saw her posture, the way her shoulders curved inward as if she were apologizing for existing. Something in his chest tightened. He'd seen that look before. He'd worn it himself at parent meetings where couples sat together, whispering about the poor widower, or at playgrounds where pity disguised itself as politeness. Dinner continued, but the cruelty grew bolder. When Emma went to refill her drink, a chair scraped loudly behind her, almost tripping her. Someone snorted. "Careful," a voice said, dripping with mock concern. "Wouldn't want the floor to crack." The laughter that followed was no longer subtle. It was public, sharp, unforgiving. Emma froze. For a second the room spun. She considered pretending she hadn't heard, but her hands shook as she set the glass down. She felt 12 years old again, standing in a cafeteria with a tray and nowhere safe to sit. She whispered to herself, "Just go, no one would blame you." That was when a chair moved, not near her but across the room. Daniel stood up. The sound cut through the noise like a bell. Conversations faltered, heads turned. Daniel didn't rush. He didn't look angry. He walked calmly, Lily watching from her chair with curious eyes toward Emma's table. Every step felt heavy but certain. He stopped beside Emma, who looked up startled, confusion written across her face. "I hope you don't mind," Daniel said, his voice steady, warm enough to disarm the room. "But I was wondering if I could sit with you." Silence followed. Emma blinked. Sure," she managed. Daniel pulled out a chair opposite her and sat down. He smiled, not the polite kind, but the kind that reaches the eyes. "I'm Daniel," he said, "and I just wanted you to know I think you look beautiful tonight." A few gasps rippled through the room. Emma's breath caught. No one had ever said that to her without a joke. Hiding behind it. "Thank you," she whispered, unsure if she could trust her voice. Daniel leaned back slightly, loud enough for others to hear. "You know," he continued, "I promised my daughter I'd raise her to recognize real beauty. The kind that doesn't shrink when someone laughs. The kind that doesn't need permission to exist." The bridesmaids shifted uncomfortably. Someone cleared their throat. Emma felt tears press against her eyes, not from humiliation this time, but from something unfamiliar and fragile, relief. Daniel wasn't finished. He stood again, gently resting a hand on the back of Emma's chair. "If anyone here thinks kindness is optional," he said, scanning the room, "then this might be the wrong celebration to be at. Weddings are about love, and love doesn't mock." No one laughed now. From her seat, Lily slid off her chair and walked over, tugging on Daniel's sleeve. He bent down and she whispered something into his ear. Daniel smiled and nodded. Lily turned to Emma, held out her small hand and said brightly, "My daddy says you're brave. Will you dance with us?" The music changed, soft, slow, forgiving. The kind of song that gives people second chances. Emma hesitated only a moment before taking Lily's hand. Daniel offered his other hand and together they stepped onto the dance floor. At first, Emma moved stiffly, painfully aware of every eye, then Lily laughed, spinning, and Daniel followed, clumsy but sincere. Something inside Emma loosened. She laughed too, quietly at first, then freely. Around them people watched. Some looked ashamed, others inspired. One by one, couples joined the dance floor until Emma was no longer alone at the center of attention. She was simply part of the celebration. By the end of the night, Emma stood a little taller. The whispers were gone, replaced by smiles that felt different. Less forced, more human. As she prepared to leave, Daniel walked her to the door. "Thank you," Emma said, her voice steadier now. "You didn't have to do that." Daniel shook his head. "Yes, I did. The world changes when someone decides not to stay seated." Emma nodded, carrying those words with her into the cool night air. Years later, Emma would remember that wedding not for the laughter, but for the moment it stopped, for the single dad who stood when it mattered, for the child who invited her to dance, and for the truth she finally believed, that dignity isn't given by a room full of people. Sometimes it arrives in one brave step forward, and it stays with you forever.